I'm Sue O'Connell. Tonight on Greater Boston, the NAACP and the League of United Latin American Citizens are warning the state of Florida may not be safe for people of color after the state adopted a series of harmful laws. Then we take a look at Polar Park in Worcester and whether the city's investment is actually paying off for the people who live there. Your life is not valued. That's the NAACP's message to people of color about Florida. The organization is issuing a travel advisory for the state, which they argue is, quote, openly hostile toward African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ+ individuals, and devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African Americans and other communities of color. This warning comes as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is likely preparing to enter the 2024 presidential race, building a campaign on the conservative agenda he has long stoked in his state. This year alone, DeSantis and his administration have blocked a high school AP course on African American studies, expanded his Don't Say Gay bill to ban classroom instruction on sexual orientation to all grades, signed another bill that would place children whose parents provide them with gender-affirming care into the custody of the state, and bars the use of public funds to cover gender-affirming care for all. And the NAACP is not alone. The LGBTQIA advocacy group Equality Florida has issued their own advisory, and so has the League of United Latin American Citizens after DeSantis signed a new law requiring employers to check the immigration status of employees through a federal database. To discuss all this, I'm joined by the president and CEO of that organization, Domingo Garcia, and by Michael Curry, chair of the National NAACP Advocacy and Policy Committee. Welcome to both of you. Michael, I want to start with you. Tell me what the inspiration was for this advisory warning.
Yeah, well, one, we know that Governor DeSantis has been attacking many of the constituents we care about, right? We're talking about access to DEI in Massachusetts, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, initiatives. We're talking about education and allowing kids to learn the history of this country and some of the circumstances that deal with racism. We're talking about the attacks on the LGBTQIA community and other communities. Quite frankly, we're talking about the attack on Disney and businesses to do the right thing. And Florida, they've been focusing on this issue for a long time. The state conference president of Florida is a good friend of mine. I serve on the board with her, Ms. Adora Enwize. They've been focused on it, and they really came to the national NAACP and said, we need this to be a national advisory, not a ban, but an advisory, and brought a resolution to the committee that I chair, which is Advocacy and Policy. I had a chance to present this resolution over the weekend at our board meeting in San Francisco, and it was passed unanimously, really cautioning people, if you're going to travel to Florida, let's let you know how Florida treats people of color, LGBTQIA brothers and sisters, as well as the many others that are discriminated against when they enter Florida.
Domingo, what's your reaction been to some of these moves, especially the move by the DeSantis folks to check immigration status? Has this put up a red flag for you in traveling to Florida, and is that why your organization has sort of joined in on this caution?
Yeah, well, we put out our travel advisory last week when we saw the immigration bill that was being put forward, that basically if I take my grandma, who may be undocumented, along with my wife, who's a U.S. citizen, and maybe some children that are permanent residents, we get stopped by law enforcement in Florida, I can get charged with a felony for taking grandma to Disney World or on a vacation. Show me your papers by law enforcement. Sounds like something out of 1940 Germany, not 2023 in the United States and Florida. So we wanted to make sure that people knew the consequences of this, as well as the verification of your immigration status to get emergency care at a hospital. Last week, we had a woman who had a birth of a baby outside. The baby died. and she was afraid to go to the hospital because she was afraid she'd be turned over to ICE. This is un-Christian, un-American, and really unparalleled in the history of the United States.
Michael, has the NAACP ever issued a warning like this before? I mean, the world is a dangerous place for all of the groups that you have mentioned. Certainly, the history of African Americans being able to travel safely within a state, obviously with sundown laws and all sorts of challenges. But has the NAACP ever done this before?
Yeah, the NAACP has had many circumstances over its over a 100-year history where we've had to provide warnings for our members, for the folks that we represent, cautionary notes about violence against African Americans and other concerns. This is an evolution of that. This is an advisory again and not a ban. I said recently, and I think I said this weekend when we were voting on this, that only in America, in the perverse politics we have right now, when being woke can be a bad thing, right? You don't want to be sleep. You actually want to be woke, and you want to know history, and you want to know how folks who are immigrants to this country are being treated and marginalized. As I would say, we often drive people in the shadows, and COVID-19 taught us that. Driving them into the shadows does not do anything for our society. It actually hurts public health. It's not good for society, and as was said, is un-American.
Domingo, this obviously is a political issue. We're talking about a governor, a Republican governor, who's most likely going to run for president, and initiating and implementing a strategy of what his idea of what he wants America to look like. But at the same time, of all the groups that we're talking about who are worried about going to Florida, there's a lot of Republicans in that mix. Are you hearing from any members of your organization or your friends or family who might be on the conservative side who are just wondering what the heck is happening in Florida?
We have a lot of, LULAC is nonpartisan, and we've only issued one prior advisory. That was in Arizona back in 2010. And Republicans and moderates, a lot of the Hispanics happen to be Republicans in Florida, Cuban Americans and, Venezolanos and Nicaraguans who are fleeing socialist countries are saying, what is Governor DeSantis doing? Why is he using human beings as political piñatas, bashing them with the scapegoating, the fear-mongering, the politics of division and hate, kind of turning to the right of his compadre, former President Trump. And that politics backfired on them in Arizona, where after LULAC did our advisory, now Arizona went from being red to blue. Same thing happened in the 80s and 90s in California under Governor Wilson. California went from a Ronald Reagan red state to a blue state. And I think Florida is going to change with this type of politics of division and hate.
Michael, I've talking about politics and talking about real people, right? I think all three of us, I'm meeting you for the first time, Domingo, but I imagine we talk about politics a lot and pay attention to the things that are happening in the world. But I have a number of friends who are just living their lives, trying to go to Disney, trying to decide what they're going to do. I have a friend who has a trans child who is afraid to go to Florida in case something happens and they have to go to the hospital. I have a young adult friend who was worried that she might, be pregnant and didn't want to go to Florida in case she had a miscarriage. This is an advisory and a warning, as you're saying, not a ban, because there are people who work in Florida, and I'm certain we all want people to continue to have their jobs. Are we at a tipping point, do you think, with this issue where people are seeing that this politics, which they see about in the news, these political ideas and ideologies are now impacting their everyday lives, from their health to travel to go to a vacation spot they might have been going to for years?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, one thing jumps in my mind when I think about your question. I think about, of course, Dr. King's quote, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So even if it's your neighbor, you should care. Because ultimately, those kind of injustices, you will experience them as well, because it's giving people unbridled access to trample on the rights of fellow citizens. But I think, to your point, now we're starting to see it directly. So if you have folks who are LGBTQIA, and they're now having to fear sort of the rhetoric as well as the policy that's now coming out in Florida. If you are an immigrant, as was said, and you're now seeing this heightened scrutiny around whether you have citizenship or not, and the implications for the broader family. If you're a person of color, and for the NAACP, and you're traveling to Florida, you need to know that they are not teaching real history, American history in Florida, that they are now acting legislatively to restrict the teaching of inclusive history and marginalizing of people. So I think for all of us, whether it's direct and it's you, I mean, a neighbor, or whether you experience it directly, we have to act. And this advisory is prompting us to do so.
Domingo, as you mentioned, there are a whole number of elected lawmakers and elected officials in Florida who are Hispanic, Latino, Latina, and there's a large number of folks who live there who represent within your community. What are you hearing back from the people in Florida, both the lawmakers and the citizens, about what's happening there and a response to these cautions?
I've heard that it's like an American Taliban has taken over the Florida state government. When you see some of these things that they're doing that are engaging in culture wars against the gay community, against the African American community, against Latinos and immigrants. Like, where did this come from? And I'm afraid that when you take that genie out of that bottle, that genie of kind of hate and what we've seen traditionally over America in the past, that it's real difficult to put it in. We're getting hate mail. We're getting death threats. And people in Florida are saying they're afraid. I mean, picking oranges can become a crime in Florida if you're undocumented or you know somebody that's undocumented that you gave a right to work that day. And that is creating a lot of fear and a lot of distrust. And that's why it has to be challenged. It has to be fought.
Michael, I'm struggling to find a way to defend DeSantis in Florida on this. I want to try and offer.
It's indefensible.
I'm trying to offer a fair counterbalance here. But I also am struggling to try and find what the political, what's the strategy here? Even if we say it's immoral or amoral, and I'm doing this because I want to get elected. I'm seeing a whole bunch of people who have been kind of in their silos, communities over the past 10 years, suddenly getting back together again and putting aside some differences that they may have had around some things and recognizing this as a threat. So I'm asking you to put your political hat on. How does this benefit Florida, Ron DeSantis as governor or as a candidate for president?
Well, one is I know it doesn't, and we should know it doesn't benefit Florida. It benefits the candidate. It benefits the candidate for president, Ron DeSantis. This is a culture war. And quite frankly, all of the constituencies we've been talking about are casualties of that war. This is performative. He knows that it's red meat to the base. And if you go after people and you use logical fallacies, you appeal to people's sense of security, if you make them think that someone's going to take their job or their religion or their guns, that motivates people to show up and vote. And DeSantis is trafficking in that now, like the former president did. And he realized that there was a winning campaign in doing that. I don't think Americans have shifted since Donald Trump's election a few years ago. And I'm hopeful that Ron DeSantis is going to have a rude awakening if and when, most likely when, he decides to run for president, that America will no longer tolerate that kind of hate.
Domingo, I know you're not necessarily a political organization, but what would your message be to folks about how to counter what's happening in Florida?
Don't get mad, get organized. Go and if you're a permanent resident, get your citizenship, register to vote, get the vote out, support candidates that support us. Those candidates that engage in the politics of us versus them, vote them out of office, and make sure that we have people that are there to serve and stand for the best of America. That when we say we're liberty and justice for all, we mean all. That when we look at that Statue of Liberty that's there in New York Harbor, that we're a country of immigrants, we stand up for those values and those rights, and we stand up against those who would put that down, who would spit in the face of the Statue of Liberty and our values.
Michael, as we're gearing up for the 2024 presidential election, candidates already, June is coming, and by that point, usually most folks will be in that are getting in. Trump, obviously, in. DeSantis, maybe, as we've said, announcing this week. Are you gearing up for the rhetoric that's going to be coming? I mean, I'm still reeling from Trump's inauguration speech when he talked about American carnage and how I didn't know that was a vision that was part of his platform. How are you preparing? How's the NAACP preparing for the discussion that may be swirling around these debates and these town halls?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we know, again, using that analogy of a war, it's a war for the truth. And And ultimately, we and other sister civil rights organizations really have to have that war in social media to deliver the truth, to counter these false narratives about people, about populations. The NAACP and our sister civil rights organizations are really in that work of making sure, whether it's television, radio, social media, we're active and engaged, and we're meeting people where they are, and we're pointing out the lies. We do know lies have been marked by this past several years, and we do know Ron DeSantis and other candidates will traffic in lies, and we have to point that out everywhere and anywhere we can. One James Baldwin, novelist, essayist, civil rights activist, paraphrasing, nothing can be solved that can't be faced. And we have to face this, and we have to show up and meet it head on.
Domingo, I know that certainly the issue of migration and immigration, and especially over the southern border, is not one that's new, and it's one that for decades both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, have not paid enough attention to. Obviously, concerns about the reversal of the asylum issues and how folks seek asylum that the Biden administration has put in place, getting a lot of criticism, the ACLU, among others, suing the Biden administration for that change. But at the same time, I think it's clear to most Americans that we need folks to work in this country, both through migration and immigration. What do you think is going to happen in Florida with this migration demand, this papers demand that's been put in place?
You know, they say immigration is the third rail of politics. And the fact of the matter is, we've seen this politics before. You know, the Irish are coming. They're going to destroy America as we know it. They're all drunks. They eat potatoes. The Italians are coming in. America's going to be destroyed by this pizza and these guys. And then now it's the brown people are coming, and they're going to destroy America as we know it because too many margaritas and tacos are going to be here. I mean, it's all a lie. It's all false. But it can affect the economy and the lives of people day to day in Florida. And Florida, by the way, stands for Land of Flowers in Spanish. We were here first. So the fact that people are coming and working, the fact of the matter is, who's going to pick those oranges in 100-degree temperatures in the Florida sun? Who's going to pick those strawberries? Who's going to be working on those roofs and on those construction sites? I mean, the fact of the matter is, we need immigrant labor. We need to open up legal immigration, yes, worker programs to allow these people to come in legally, do their work, and maybe return to their country of origin or become citizens and give them the American dream. But we have a broken system, and it's going to take politicians from both parties to fix it. But if one party is just using them as political piñatas and just beating up on them, we're not going to solve anything, and it doesn't solve the problem of immigration.
Domingo Garcia and Michael Curry, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When the Red Sox AAA baseball team made a deal to move to Worcester, the city pledged to build a stadium that would pay for itself. Now, it's been just over 2 years since the Worcester Red Sox played their first game in Polar Park. Only a quarter of the seats were filled that day because of COVID-19 restrictions. But since then, the Sox at Polar Park have become one of the biggest ticket sellers in minor league baseball. But with a price tag of nearly $160 million, more than half of which came from the city itself, is Polar Park actually worth it for Worcester? Financially speaking, the answer is no. That, according to a recent paper by 2 local economics professors, the authors concluded that the stadium will actually cost Worcester $40 to $60 million over the next 30 years. I'm joined now by the co-author of that study, Robert Baumann, a professor of economics at the College of the Holy Cross. Welcome so much. Thanks for coming. What's your premise here? Why do you think it's going to cost Worcester so much?
Well, what we did is we took the economic model developed by the city's expert. We looked at some of those assumptions, which have to go deep into the future, 30 years. And we thought a couple of them were unrealistic. And so we adjusted the numbers for that based on, using the same model as that original person. And the other big adjustment that we made, which wasn't known at the time, was the increase in the construction cost of the stadium. And so that's how we get numbers between 40 and 60 million.
Robert, were you coming from this from a perspective? I mean, I'm always making the argument that whenever the city or state or taxes are going to be used to build what's basically a private company's home, whether it's a bridge over Route 1 in Foxborough or a soccer stadium that might be at Whitehead Circle, which isn't going to happen in Boston, that we're basically investing in a private company and hoping that we'll get an economic payout from that. Is that the perspective that you were taking, or were you more neutral to look to see what you would find out?
For us, the kind of people that do this work, I think where we get frustrated is the claim that the stadiums will pay for themselves. And we suspect that that's done for political reasons. Not everybody in a city is a fan of a sport, but if you told people that, like, look, we're going to get this and it's not going to cost you anything, then it's very difficult to be against it. And to us, obviously, Polar Park is already here, so we can't do anything about that. But if you look at developments around the country, like, what they claim is that these things will pay for themselves. And so our idea was to look at the impact study that the city commissioned, prior to being built, and basically kind of take it apart and figure out, like, what should the numbers look like. And what we found is that study was, in our opinion, wildly optimistic about the growth rates over time and the like.
So let's unpack the study just a little bit for folks to understand. Obviously, you took into account, as you mentioned, the construction costs, which were not what were expected. But what about the impact on the city itself? What about the impact of maybe housing prices around the park, parking lots that might pop up, additional business and economic stimulus that might go into folks who are attending these very popular games? How did you calculate that?
Well, there's a lot of winners and losers in this. There's no question about it. Our attitude is that the right geographic area should be the city, because the city is who's paying for it, rather than the neighborhood, where you're going to see the most development around the stadium. And if you've been out to Worcester, it looks a lot different around Polar Park and Kelly Square. There's no question about it. And so, we're sympathetic to the idea of City Council 4 or 5 years ago looking at an area near downtown that they've wanted to develop for a long time. Again, our complaint is that the numbers never added up then, and things honestly just got worse since then. Like, another kind of problem with these is that the city didn't account for risk. Nobody saw COVID-19 coming, so we don't fault them for that. But the problem is, like, when the city owns this facility, it maintains the risk for anything that could happen. And in our case, of the last 3-4 years, that was COVID-19, that was higher construction costs, that was inflation, that was environmental cleanup under the site.
Do you offer a remedy in your report?
Yes, don't believe economic impact studies before it's built. And, what we tell city officials who have pushed back on this idea is that, we want there to be honesty in this debate, which is, it might cost the city some money. There are intangible benefits. I live here in Worcester, and I really like that the team has brought a certain amount of city pride to people that favor the team. People wearing Woo Sox gear, both for the team and I think to be proud of where they're from too. All that stuff is great. It's very difficult to measure. Our attitude is, like, let's just be honest about this. Like, this is an investment in perhaps the character of the city. There are lots of risks that are involved. But again, like, when these facilities are getting built, like in Worcester, and the discussions were happening in 2019, again, the debate was framed that we could have this work on its own and pay for ourselves. And this is just, in our opinion, the latest in the long line of stadiums that have underdelivered on that promise.
Do you envision where this money might have been spent better? And I mean, obviously, there are obvious answers to that. But if we were going to stay in the category of economic development for Worcester, where would you recommend this money get spent?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, like, I would say, as a resident of the town, the school district is a huge issue here. Now, the city has made a lot of investments into that, but my opinion is that we're not quite done. In terms of economic development, that's another path that you could go. But usually, like, what's fascinating about studying sports is that it kind of scrambles people's dollars and cents. And so, a business or a factory goes in and the city thinks about jobs and, maybe what that business wants. The team went in here, and our city council, in my opinion, didn't do its due diligence of thinking about what the dollars and cents of this could be. One
of the things that I find quite remarkable in Boston is I used to work in the Fenway neighborhood in the 1990s, and it was grim. And now when I go there and I see what's happened to the Fenway neighborhood, and I see how the Red Sox facility itself has expanded using its inventory for concerts, building out areas where you've got the MGM concert hall. And I say, well, why couldn't somebody see this before? Why did it take this long for someone to see this development? Is there still opportunity for the Polar Park to become something more substantial that may generate more income and actually maybe at least catch up and break even with the investment that the city made?
Certainly. I would say a big difference here is the neighborhood already looks different. And another issue that caught everybody off guard was that the development around the stadium, which was intended to pay the bills for it, had to be scaled back because, again, nobody saw the COVID-19 pandemic coming and a lot of plans got scaled back because of it. That's kind of the risk that my city is in right now, if I'm being honest, because it needs the development to happen to pay the bills. It's kind of under-delivered on that promise. The question is, are the developers still going to want to do that, going forward? And I'm not sure right now.
So, Robert, almost every statewide elected official, statewide candidate, I should say, that I have interviewed over the past 15 years, whether they're running for governor or state senate, will often talk about how Worcester is going to be the next place. It's going to finally live up to its potential. We're going to connect Worcester and Boston, and people are going to live in Worcester, commute to Boston, and back and forth and back and forth. And there was a lot of hopes and dreams put on this stadium. What's the potential? How do we get Worcester to where everyone hopes that it will be so that it can be more connected to the greater Boston area and vice versa?
That's interesting. Could I offer the point that we're doing fine as we are right now?
Absolutely.
I've lived here for 20 years, and I'm from the Midwest. And one of the things I noticed when I moved out here was Worcester kind of has an inferiority complex, is the way I would describe it. And it's those issues that you exactly describe. And so to me, Boston is great. So is Worcester. Does it need to be connected further? I think that's going to be difficult. I mean, the turnpike goes right under our city and it makes it kind of hard to get there. So, for me, it's let's just develop what we have here because this really is a great place to live.
Are you attending Woo Sox games?
Sure. It's a great event, and I would recommend people do the same. Again, this has nothing to do with tearing the stadium down or anything like that. To us, we're on to the next stadium, the next battle in terms of this public debate. That's not happening here in Massachusetts right now, but it is happening in Las Vegas. It's happening in Oakland. It's happening potentially in Cleveland and a variety of other places that are going to consider building these stadiums at public expense.
Or welfare, as some people might call it, corporate welfare, right? All right, Robert Baumann, thank you so much. I appreciated reading your article about the situation in Commonwealth Magazine and certainly appreciate your reporting on this. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
That's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Sue O'Connell. Thanks for watching.